You're listening to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, episode number 25. Today I speak with wife, mom, bereaved mom, and founder of Grieve, Breathe, Believe, Lisa Price, on hope after loss. Welcome to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, where we gain inspiration and motivation from others who share their touching stories of renewing hope and discovering purpose in any circumstance. I'm your host, Christina Reisinger, and today we will be encouraged by another tremendously inspirational topic that will embolden you to release fear, begin taking small steps forward, and move into your God-given purpose to live and serve in this life. Join me for today's story. Hey, Lisa, how are you today?
I'm good, Christina. How are you?
I am great. So I want for you to tell the audience a little bit about who you are, and then we would go into talking about your story.
All right. Well, my name is Lisa Price. I am the wife to my husband, Brandon. We will be celebrating our 9th anniversary next month. And I'm also a mom to our almost 8-year-old son, Chase, who is, a sports fanatic, tons of energy, and our real life superhero. And then I'm also a bereaved mom to our beautiful daughter, Ari, who passed away in 2017. She had a chromosomal disorder, trisomy 13, and was diagnosed pretty early on when we were pregnant at like 13 weeks gestation. So yeah, in an instant, our lives were changed by one phone call. And lots of ups and downs. Grief entered our world. It was that anticipatory grief of, not knowing if she was going to make it to term, or would we have the chance to even meet her alive? It was very, very all-consuming and overwhelming, I would say. And shook our faith, obviously, not to the point where we turned, but it shook our faith enough to the point where we clung to it. And I can see now, that's one of the beautiful pieces. Yeah. That's one of the incredibly beautiful pieces. It's not easy, not easy at all. But I believe if we didn't have our faith, we wouldn't be standing where we are right now. So, in all honesty, I can say obviously that is our foundation. That is our stronghold.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, first, I want to tell you, I've told you before, but I'm definitely sorry for your loss. We met through Instagram, I believe.
Yeah.
And we have similar stories because my daughter had the trisomy 18, so
right.
Completely understand that anticipatory grief where you're constantly not knowing if your child will even be born alive, and then what will happen after that. It's really tough, and we too clung to our faith, where a lot of people a lot of people just get angry with God, and a lot of people don't understand, and we certainly didn't understand either.
Right.
But, I will tell you, and I may have told you this before, but, one of the things my husband said to me in the midst of our own grief and losing our child as well was that, when you get to heaven, God may or may not tell you why. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, you know what? I guess that's okay.
Right.
So, and congratulations on your soon-to-be anniversary, by the way. That's great stuff.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Takes a lot of work, right?
Yeah, marriage, children, all of it, right?
Yes.
So today we're going to talk about, just finding hope after loss. That's what this podcast, that's what we talk about on Faith Breathes Hope, is being able to navigate all of life's circumstances, the bad things that come into our lives, because we are not promised perfection. Even if we are Christians, we are promised that we're going to have to go through things, and being able to know that we can live our life and experience joy even through all of the circumstances is a big deal, so that we don't get stuck in a place where we cannot enjoy life, because God does intend for us to enjoy life.
Right.
So I want to ask you, I know that you have created your business in order to help other people, as similar thing like I'm doing because
Mhm.
of the grief that you experienced. But before you did that, can you talk a little bit about going through that initial grief and what it looked like for your faith to bring you to a place where you could hope enough to decide, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to serve others. I think I'm going to try to help somebody else because I know this pain. I know how deep it is. And I want to help someone else through that.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly the experience of grief that I think obviously brought me to this place, because it changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the pain that comes with losing a child is devastating, but we can also see it as a gift and a connection to them because it exists because we loved first. And to honor our child's life, if we honor our life, I think we do that. So finding hope and seeking God and just having that unshakable trust and faith is huge. And so I knew from the moment of diagnosis, like, this isn't just happening just to happen, right? God doesn't allow things to just happen and then leave it. Like, there is a purpose. I might not even be on the right path, but I knew and I felt in my heart that we were chosen as Ari's parents. No one else could parent her the way that we parent her. And I was bound and determined to make use of this pain. It still hurts. It doesn't minimize the pain at all, but I'm learning ways to turn something so tragic into something, hopefully, that is helpful for others and beauty from ashes, as they say. So I think it's through my experience of navigating grief, which, loss of a child, I would consider one of life's greatest challenges, that my heart is continually called to help other bereaved parents who are walking a very similar journey, to help them find the hope that I have found and the healing, and experience happiness and joy in the midst of sorrow. I coach a lot of people to use the word "and," because I think you can experience the combination of two feelings at once. You can be happy, but you can also be sad. So being okay to feel those two feelings and not feel like you have to get rid of one or the other. Grief is living with the ands, that bittersweet. So I would like to think that through my experience, I'm able to offer that compassion and that empathy and, a safe yet productive space for bereaved parents, so that they too can use their pain as fuel to ignite their purpose and find meaning in life and honor their life to honor their child. So it's, my mission now to help other bereaved parents rediscover and basically reconstruct themselves, because you're not the same after the death of your child, so that they can transform that pain into purpose, possibility, and, forward movement on their grief journey.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, we have such a similar path that we're taking. I jumped into this. I mean, nobody ever says, hey, I want to help other people through all their pain and their sorrow. Oh, maybe they do. But generally, I found that is because of their own experiences. Even Isabella's nurses would tell me stories about how they were nurses because of, someone in their life that they had lost, or, something tragic that would happen that made them want to help other people. And I've met a lot of people like that. A lot of people that work in the grief area have their own special story around that. So
we actually, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of our nurses that did an ultrasound for us, she actually had spoken to our doctor ahead of time and asked if she could ask permission to talk to us about her story. And her daughter also had trisomy 18. So she shared with us during an ultrasound her story. And she spoke the words that this, whatever happens, this will either make you better or bitter, and you get to choose. And ever since those words left her mouth, they have stuck with me. I mean, we have a choice. We don't have a choice in the circumstance, but we have a choice in what we choose to do with it and how we choose to respond versus emotionally react. And everything is always a choice. We're the ones in control of those choices as far as our response to something. So ever since those words left her mouth, they have stuck with me. And I would like to think that one step at a time. It wasn't easy, but I chose better. Even if it was going from complete bitterness to anger, that's a step up, or like that's the next reach higher in choosing better. So if she didn't share her story, I'm not sure that I would feel this way. And then same goes for like a candle lighting ceremony that we went to, or another mom lost her daughter, Madeline, and she shared her story. And that is what sparked me to finally actually take some steps to be like, I want to do that. I want to speak. I want to be that strong. I want to be that person who can show others that it's possible to live after loss. And so if she didn't share her story, I'm not sure that I'd be doing what I'm doing right now either. So I think those are all Godcidences, I like to call them. God puts people in your life. God puts people in your life that are meant to change it, and you just have to be open to receiving that and open to like accepting, the people that he puts in your path and the things that he puts in your path. And so, yeah, if they didn't share their stories, I'm not sure I'd be doing what I'm doing and standing here. So,
yeah. And that's exactly, like I said, what we want to do here on Faith Breeds Hope is to share stories so that people understand that while we go through different things and we're not exactly in each other's shoes, we can relate, we can have empathy, and we can understand that we're not alone. We can say, you know what, it's not just me, that I'm not the only one thinking these thoughts. I'm not the only one that has gone through this situation. And there's someone else who is, and they're still alive, they're still breathing, they're still able to walk forward, and they might even be able to experience joy and still live a full life, because we are promised to have goodness in this life. And that is what has carried me through with all of the sorrow. Now, let me say this. So when I first started decided I wanted to be a grief coach, and I started helping people, and even now, a year and a half out, every once in a while something comes up and I think, wow, you know what, I have to be in a certain place to help other people. Now, especially that came up when I first started. And I thought, well, how am I going to help other people if I am a hot mess myself? And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, you know what, I'm relatable. And then even now, when I speak to people, it's not as hard as it used to be. However, I do have many moments where I just boo-hoo. I had one the other day. We watched a movie. Jeremy Camp, lost his wife, and for me, watching that movie, thinking about that anticipatory grief, thinking about pleading with the Lord to heal someone you love. For me, that was not about a spousal relationship. For me, that was about that relationship with my daughter. And so I just had a really good cry. And, but see, it just happens. It happens over the years. You're going to still cry. So how is that for you when, do you have any of those thoughts with, oh my goodness, am I strong enough to help other people?
Yeah. Well, I have what the heck am I doing? Like, there's no way that I know what I'm talking about. But, when you have those moments, I mean, you have to honor them because they're showing up, because it's fear, right? It's, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to offend someone. I don't want to be wrong. But honestly, when you're just giving your heart and your experience and you're being open and honest and you're trusting, these women and these men that we're helping, they're trusting us to just be truthful. They don't need a fix because there is no fix. They don't need you to solve a problem, right? I mean, some people, yes, they want like an answer and like, how do I get rid of this? How do I, but then you say there is no getting rid of it and you don't want to. You want to learn to integrate it into your life, but you don't want to get rid of it because then that means you're getting rid of your love. It is there because you love and you're missing them so much. So, but yeah, I've had lots of those moments, you know, and I've had the moments too where you're just like, can I just have my daughter back? Like, why? You know, because it is hard and it is emotionally draining. So I like to use the and I use this with my clients too, is like, how often do we recharge our cell phone to make sure that it doesn't lose its battery? Like we have to be that aware of recharging ourselves, no matter what that looks like to us, in order to give to others, you know. And everybody always puts themselves, for the most part, I would say women, a lot of times when you're a mom, put yourself last. And you make sure everybody else is taken care of. But, you know, we've all heard the saying of like, you can't give from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. You got to put your oxygen mask on first before assisting others, all of those, because it's so true. You know, so if you look at it kind of like how often you charge your battery on your mobile phone, we need to have those little recharge moments, even if it's 5 minutes in the morning of staying in bed, not rushing to get out, and just breathing, intentionally breathing and thinking of what you're grateful for, or, you know, just thinking of the breath that you're breathing, you know, how lucky you are that you have this breath and there's purpose to the reason why you are here and you are breathing. You know, if you're breathing, you are surviving this grief journey, right? And then we want to get from surviving to like living, as you said. So I just think being intentional and having those little 5-minute, like, okay, ground yourself, take a moment, realize that you have a purpose, and you're doing, especially, I mean, I would say for you and I, like doing this kind of work, if we didn't do this, someone else wouldn't be affected. Somebody else, we would be doing a disservice holding on to what we have learned on our journey. You know, I almost feel like it's a gift that would be wasted, just like the gift of the pain that we feel in grief. Grief is a gift. I feel like if we've been called to share this and share our experience and help others through it, if we silence that and let fear take over, we're doing a huge disservice to every single person who would have been affected by our words or our coaching or, you know, online course or whatever it may be, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, filling your cup before, you know, you are able to help others and recharging yourself for those moments that they are draining. You know, it's a lot of heavy emotions and hearing other people's story. I was told by my coach you can be there and hold safe space and, you know, hold a bucket for people to kind of put that stuff in, but don't ingest it. Don't swallow it yourself, right? We're there to hold space, but we also have to take care of ourselves and our hearts. So we can be an empathetic ear, but we can't ingest all of the grief that they're feeling.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So there's so many things. First of all, you said it's a calling. And I very much feel like that as well, that, you know, like I said before, most of us wouldn't be here if, you know, we didn't plan to be here necessarily, you know what I'm saying? It's like, or we had Isabella, I would have never thought that I would help anybody. I mean, not that I didn't have a loving heart, not that I didn't love people, not that I didn't want to do things for people, just in this area. I would have never thought that I could be strong enough. And that right there lets me know that it's something that God has a hand in, because I remember looking at, and I still do, I look at these posts on social media where in these grief groups where people talk about losing people, and my heart just breaks. And when I first started working here, and I would read and read and read and read, and I just wanted to reach out to every single one of them and, just, tell them that they're loved. And, but like I said, and like you said, sharing the stories, and getting people to share the stories is so important. And when you and I share our story, or other people who are in this area, and the fact that we can do it in our imperfection, the fact that we can do it when we still, walk around the corner and sit in the bathroom and cry, after several years, it lets people know that it's okay to talk about it. You don't have to have it all together, and, some people really feel that way. I know I did.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't talk to anybody until I have everything, together, and I have this down pat, and, I'm the perfectionist on this kind of thing. And that's just not the case. I mean, we can share our stories, and you never know who you're going to touch.
Right.
So, and I love the way that you said before, and that's come up several times, and with people that I've been speaking with lately, where you use that word and I'd like for you to elaborate on that a little bit, maybe give a few examples, so that people can see how it might fit in their own lives.
For sure. Well, it's such a power word, right? Because I think when you use the word but, it's kind of like you're dismissing one of the feelings that you're feeling. And I'll use, I guess, for instance, like my sister, she just told me that she's pregnant. And even though it's 3 years later, it's still that, right, that initial shock kind of, and being the way that I have kind of like helped other people through this, I'm aware right now of, I am so incredibly happy for them, incredibly happy. I can't wait to meet my niece or nephew. And I'm sad that Ari doesn't get to experience having cousins, and I'm sad that Chase, my son, does not get to have a living sibling here. And just understanding that it's okay to have those feelings, right? It's okay to experience two feelings at the same time, and not have to dismiss one or get rid of one or feel the shame or guilt when, somebody announces a pregnancy and you're upset because your child died, whether it's a pregnancy or if it's just watching, a child that would be the same age, as your child. I think we all feel that way. So that was, I can't even remember who told me to use that word and, but I remember whoever said it was just like, I couldn't stop thinking about that one little word, that 3-letter word has so much power. And so like I began kind of testing it out, and whenever I was feeling those differing emotions, I used the word but to kind of keep them distant. But then when you put and, it brings them together. I mean, it could even be just, it's a beautiful day outside and I just can't face the world today. It doesn't have to necessarily be, some big traumatic trigger. Or, that new picture of my nephew is so adorable and it reminds me of how much I miss my own daughter. So and can slowly change or shift your world. That one word can give you the freedom to kind of experience the I don't want to say storm of emotions, but the swirl of emotions that, rage inside of you. And you don't have to wait for a certain feeling to pass over completely to start feeling a different one. That you can feel them in connection with each other. So before Anne, there, was probably a lot of guilt about feeling happiness sneaking in to my grief story. But now it's like, it's okay to feel happiness and it's okay to still be sad. It's almost like, letting a little bit of color into the darkness of grief.
Definitely. And like I said, I was just speaking with someone about this. So I think one of the things that came up when you talked about not feeling guilty about the smile, you can say, you know what, I miss my loved one and I can enjoy watching a movie with my child now, my living child, and I can laugh at something that I heard that was funny. And that is very powerful because, like you said, that you can hold space for both things. And it doesn't have to be, oh, well, I miss this person, so I can't do anything else. Or,
Right.
you know, I really want to laugh, but I'm sad, so I can't. You know, you get to hold that space for both of them, and that allows you to propel yourself forward a little bit. And we talk about, you know, if anybody is listening and you speak to somebody who works in the grief area, you're not going to hear somebody, I would hope you don't anyways, you're not going to hear somebody say, move on. You're going to hear somebody say, move forward, because we're not encouraging anybody to leave anybody behind. We're not encouraging you to forget. We're not encouraging you to move on. We're encouraging you to do what Lisa said and realize that you grieve because you love, and that you can still take that love with you because it's inside your heart always. Nobody can take that from you.
Right.
You know, your person that you loved may be gone, and they're still in your heart, right?
Yeah. Right.
So,
Such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
The little word "and," you know, I never thought of it that way until it was mentioned to me that way. And then I was like, oh yeah, it helps alleviate some of that pressure, you know, and it feels like you can kind of breathe again. Because you're remembering, like, you know, how to live and love at the same time as grieving.
So when there's somebody who, like, say somebody's listening to us right now and they say, you know what, Lisa, it's all well and good, but I just don't think I'm at that place. I'm still at the butts. I'm still at this. I'm still stuck in the sadness, the heaviness, that I barely can get out of bed type of thing. And I know you even addressed that. Start to be thankful for that breath. But I speak to some people sometimes and they don't want to be here. They feel like their life has stopped, that they're never going to see that joy. So would you suggest to them that they do something that I often talk about and teach, is acting opposite, and say, putting that and into practice even though they don't quite believe it? Or would you say that they make space some other way at first? How would you suggest that they work through that?
A lot of times I like to suggest as if, like thinking as if, because we're often very hard on ourselves. So I even have a practice where I have my clients write out as if they were talking to someone who experienced what they just went through or what they are currently experiencing. So for instance, for my members, they're bereaved parents. So how would you speak to someone immediately after the death of your child or their child? And so then they'll write a sentence. And then how would you speak to them, or how would you treat them? What things would you do for them a week later, a month later, 6 months later, a year later, 3 years later, 5 years later, and like have them write all of those things down. And then on the flip page, it says, now write your name in front of that. So they literally flip whatever they would speak to someone experiencing what they're experiencing, they would flip it and say it to themselves. And I want them to read it out loud, even if they have to, you know, face in front of a mirror, read it out loud and give themselves that self-love, that self-compassion, because we are our own worst critic a lot of times, and we judge ourselves a lot. And that's what I think leads to us feeling like we're not worthy of being alive. We're not worthy of healing, because somehow that healing means that we're forgetting our loved one, which in fact it is not. It's the opposite. You're making room to be able to remember them more, because you're releasing all those negative feelings, or all of those. They're very valid. They're there for a reason. You feel guilt, you feel shame for a reason, but those are not the ones that help you grow. Those are not the ones that you want to white knuckle grip. You want to release those slowly so that you start to open up your heart and open up room in your container to make room for the love and the self-compassion, all the growth producing emotions. So kind of similar to you, where it's like you have them speak as if, or you know, start to like almost role play, because they wouldn't say the things, the horrible things sometimes that we say to ourselves, we would never say to someone else. So to flip it and actually write it out, I think helps them see the possibility of why they are here, and to treat themselves with kindness and gentleness and grace upon grace.
I love that. That's a form of self-care in and of itself, I guess. And, the fact that you're teaching people to, show that self-care from the beginning. But, you said something that was very important. A lot of times we're very critical of ourselves, and that does lead to that almost that voice inside your head that says nobody cares, nobody wants to hear this, and I was certainly guilty of that. Even the first month after Isabella passed away, I think I've told you before, I felt like nobody wanted to hear me talk about her anymore. And so many people have that voice in their head saying that nobody understands, nobody's going to care, nobody wants to hear it. And it's just not simply true. I mean, it's just simply not true. It's just something that we put on ourselves to go through things faster because we have this sense that we aren't supposed to be sitting in that place.
Yeah. This world likes to make us feel like we have to, like you said, move on, and there is no moving on. There is forward movement. It's just so fast paced, and people aren't schooled in how to help grievers, right? Unless I didn't start to do anything about grief until I was actually experiencing it myself. So I'm not sure I would have I not have had this experience. I might have been one of those people that said those cliche sayings of, at least, or the shoulds, where you're kind of imposing someone needs to, move on instead of move forward. And how can I help you do that? I think just sitting in discomfort and kind of shelving your discomfort when it comes to grief, as far as being a good supporter, is you have to do that. You kind of have to shelf your discomfort and just even be very vulnerable and saying, I don't have an answer. I don't know what it feels like. I don't know exactly how to help you, but know that I love you and I will sit in the murkiest parts with you to help you, because you're not alone. That's humanship. That's being that's being human.
Yes. And even going through something, I would say, doesn't really make you the expert on support. We've gone through things, but I don't know how you feel, but I know I have still felt awkward in that place where, like if a friend loses somebody and, there's that instinct, then you want to be like, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. And then everybody's saying that. And then you're like, oh, what to say? But the best thing, like you said, is just to sit in it with them, let them talk, let them say their person's name, let them cry ugly tears, but there's so many things that people like to say. And you even touched on this earlier. I believe that people feel so awkward and they love their friends and their family who are grieving, and they want to fix things. And you just can't fix it. And, it's instinctual, I believe, to try to fix something for somebody you care about. A spouse or a parent or, whoever it is that you're close to, a friend. You don't like to see them hurt. Right. But the best thing is just to sit there with them and let them talk about it, I would say. Yeah. It seems
let
like
them take the lead.
Simplistic to go.
I know. I said, let them take the lead, and sometimes that silence, silence is awkward for people, I think. But I know as grief coaches, that's what we are told to really just do. Let people have that opportunity, ask a question, and then let them have that space. And if it's silence, it means that they're thinking through, they're processing. It's giving them that time in that healthy processing space, and they feel safe. Because a lot of times, in grief, our lives have been shattered, right? So we feel insecure, we feel unsafe. So it's giving them that sense of security and safety. And even if it's sitting in awkward silence, just holding their hand and letting that be as it is, letting them take the lead. When they want to talk, they will talk, instead of trying to fill the silence with just noise, right? And then you end up saying something that you regret, or that needs to be addressed because it impacted the griever in a way that did not feel loving, even though it was probably coming from a well-intentioned place.
So I often think about like grief. If you've ever been out in the ocean swimming and, maybe you get tossed in by a wave and you turn around and, you don't really know which way is up, which way is down. A lot of times we feel like that in grief, and we don't really know what we are feeling. We don't know those emotions. We don't know what we need. People will ask us what we need, and we don't even know all the time. And so when you're trying to help others through grief, like you said, you just need to sit there and just be there sometimes. Sometimes there's no definitive answer.
Right.
There's no, hey, like you said, there's no fix. It's something that takes time. It's something that is different for everyone. And it is also something that ebbs and flows,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have any words of wisdom, encouragement for the audience out there who is going through grief and loss, and they're having trouble, like we said, they're maybe having some trouble with that, and we already kind of talked on that and touched on that, but maybe they're saying, well, they still have that voice in their head saying, I don't know, it might be different for you, it might not be the same for me. Do you have anything you might say to them?
I would really just encourage them to just really sit with yourself. And I know that sounds scary at times, because sometimes your mind is the thing that can be, like we said, your worst critic, right? But to really just get to know yourself. What do I need in this very second, in this present moment? Is it just focusing on my breath?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to phone a friend because I don't want to be alone right now with my thoughts? So maybe you need that little healthy distraction. Somebody that can kind of pull your focus from your grief, and that's okay. A little bit of healthy space, I think, is necessary. Do you need to call a therapist or a clinical, a counselor? Because a lot of times it is so overwhelming that you're not sure of what you're thinking is right or wrong, and you're constantly judging and just can't keep it straight. So just knowing that you're not alone, because grief does feel so lonely and isolating, even if two people are grieving over the same person. Just knowing that you are not alone, and there is hope. There is hope. There is light. I just wrote a post on this today, or was it yesterday, that you just have to trust that there is another side, right? Like when you're going through the darkest, haziest, you cannot believe that there is a way through. There is a way through. It's painful, it's scary, but that's when you employ supporters. That's when you employ tools and resources and outlets to help you through. And just trusting that, you've made it this far. Just keep going. I promise through is the only way through. Grief is always going to be there. And there is a way. There is a way to integrate it into your life so that you can live. Pushing it down and suppressing it does not make it go away. You can't run from it. You can't hide from it. Grief will always be there. So attending to it, no matter what that looks like, is so important. But believe that there is that other side.
Definitely. And I would add that, if you are a believer, and hopefully you are, if you're listening to this, you may or may not be, but pray, just that submission, saying, you know what, God, I cannot do this alone. I know I couldn't be here if it had not been for that peace. And, if you're praying and you're still sad and you're still depressed and you're still angry and you're still confused and you have all the emotions that are really weighing heavily on you, I would say just keep praying for that release, and God will come through for you. And I love the way that you spoke about reaching out for help. So that is such an important thing too, is to have a good support system, having a good support system of family and friends, but also having professionals that can help you. Lisa, would you maybe touch a little bit on like when to look for a counselor, a therapist, somebody that is licensed in the medical profession versus maybe reaching out to a coach? Because there are differences.
Yes.
Do you mind speaking about that for a minute or two?
Sure. There certainly are differences. I think before you would go to a coach, I would recommend you go to a therapist or a counselor, because there are certain things that they obviously are schooled in textbook wise, that I don't know. Right. And I feel like if you feel you're to the point where, okay, I want to do something with this, or I'm ready to soar, or I want to make my life meaningful and purposeful, that's when I think it's okay to reach out to a coach, right? Because we're the ones that, we stand with you, we show you the possibility. But if you're having, still thoughts that maybe are harmful or alarming, that's when we have to, if we were coaching you, that's when we have to actually reach out for clinical help, because we're not trained in that. Mm-hmm. We're trained to help you see the possibilities. We're there to walk with you and help you with goals that you set for yourself. But clinically, we can't diagnose anything. We can't prescribe anything.
Right.
So I speak to every single member before they join. I don't let just people buy anything, and do my course. Like, they have to sit with me and they have to have a conversation with me, almost like a intake, get to know you connection call. Because I want to make sure that you're in the right place, that you don't need clinical help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or on top of. I think it's sometimes a really good marriage to do both at the same time too. Mm-hmm. But I know if I wouldn't have seen my therapist, I wouldn't have gone to my coach, because I needed that first. I needed that. I even did EMDR therapy to help with the trauma and the PTSD.
Yeah. After I went to a therapist for the first year, and that's part of the reason why I thought coaching would be a good option for me, is because after that first year, I found myself in the space where I wasn't all better. You got through all the first, but then the second year was actually even harder for me, and I didn't have the resources that I probably would have liked to have had, because I still felt like I was in this weird place where I felt like, you know what, I should be better because it's been a year and I've gone through all these things. It's those thoughts again, that voice, and yet I'm still crushed. I'm still a fraction of the woman I used to be. And I really need support that is not my family and not my friends, somebody that has an unbiased outlook on things and is able to still walk this walk with me. And so I think that is very important, that you continue to talk with someone and have that support as well. So,
for sure.
Lisa, I really am happy that you are joining me here on Faith Breathed Hope. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Absolutely. Well, I have a website. It's grievebreathebelieve.com. Otherwise, I'm on Instagram and have a Facebook page. Grieve, Breathe, Believe is the handle. And I also have a private Facebook group for bereaved parents. So if you're a bereaved mom or dad, I have a private Facebook group as well, that I would be happy to point you in that direction. It uses my old name, but it's Grieve, Breathe, Believe. Grief Support for Bereaved Parents is the search that you can do. And we just share our stories, of course, but I always love to have a daily prompt that motivates and inspires and encourages so that we can do something with our stories. Like we said, there is so much power in storytelling and sharing, but sometimes you do get pulled into that spiral where there is no facilitator that's helping, kind of say, okay, now what can we do with, our story? Can we use the word and? Can we give ourselves kindness? So I just like to think that our support group in the Facebook group just really lends itself to a productive and safe space to share, but also to grow.
I love that. So yes, if you want to reach out to Lisa, please do. If you have lost a loved one, you have lost a child, we are sorry to hear that, and definitely sending you all of our love. We want you to know that we would love to hear your stories and that you are loved. For right now, we ask that you continue to be blessed and bless others, and we'll see you next time. And I want to thank you for joining us on Faith Breathed Hope, where you gain inspiration and motivation to renew hope and discover purpose in any circumstance. Please like and share this podcast and give us a review on iTunes. Be blessed. And I want to thank you for joining us on Faith Breathed Hope, where you gain inspiration and motivation to renew hope and discover purpose in any circumstance. Please like and share this podcast and give us a review on iTunes. Be blessed.